Cancelled.
Schweezy.
Next up, I want to talk about Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. So for some fucking reason, we had 3 Pinocchio movies in 2022. 3 Pinocchio movies coming out. You know, I made the joke a couple weeks ago that, like, hey, what if the Jack Frost from the movie Jack Frost and from the Jack Frost band joined forces with all the other cartoon Jack Frosts, and they saved the Jack Frost verse, you know? Dumb fucking idea, and that's also what we call a joke. So if you didn't get the joke, I'm going to tell you this, you're probably autistic, because I can't, you know, you can't be explaining every fucking joke after it. And like, if you're listening to podcasts and you know, you're like, this podcast, if you listen to Cancer Weed and you're like, this podcast is not funny, you're probably autistic. I'm just saying. No offense to the autistic people out there, because there's probably some autistic people out there who's like, or just laughing their asses off, like, I'm autistic and I think this is hilarious. And you're worse, you know, that means you have worse, you're worse on the spectrum than them. But I love the autistic audience. Honestly, you're probably my entire audience. Let's just be honest with you. Anyways, Guillermo del Toro. I'm saying that right. I can say it right. I cannot spell it to save my life. I don't know how that. Usually it's the opposite. Anyways, he made a Pinocchio movie. It was like stop motion. Like usually they don't make a lot of stop motion movies anymore, which it's like Robot Chicken and Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. So those are the two we have to choose from. But anyways, though, so like Lionsgate made a Pinocchio movie. And it was Pauly Shore being gay. And you know what? It was funny for a couple weeks. But I never watched the movie. And you know what? I don't need to. And then Disney remade it in live action. And then, like, Tom Hanks played Geppetto. But also, Disney has kind of, you know... And that's the thing that worries a lot of people who are fans of Marvel. And, like, I think it's like, it's going to be a little bit less, but, you know... Or whatever, but, like, they don't like a lot of violence. And, like... Disney's like a big stickler on smoking. And if you don't know anything about the Pinocchio story, is the fact that Pinocchio goes to Pleasure Island, where kids just have the time of their lives, and they're smoking and drinking, and then they turn into donkeys. And that freaks the living shit out of me, because it's something that's like, oh, I was a kid, now I'm a donkey. I'm like, how the fuck do I get out of this? Like, you can't, and like, you're forced to a life. That shit freaks me out. Like, if they were just like, hey, you can have the time of your lives, however, at the end of it, you're going to turn into a donkey. I'd be like, you know, as a kid, you're like, well, you know, like, you figure out your decision from there, but you were warned. But these kids were not warned, and like, Jesus Christ. The whole Pleasure Island stuff, just freaks the shit out of me. It's like being turned into a donkey. And there's like a conspiracy theory, or not a conspiracy theory, god damn, it's not a conspiracy. There's a theory that Donkey from Shrek was one of the children from Pleasure Island that turned into a donkey, which, like, honestly does make a lot of sense, but they never really... there's like a lot of resources on it too, so like you can look into it. Does John Solo do a lot of good? John Solo is really good. Like, if you want like books into... like the real truth behind blank film. But he's already done one on Pinocchio, but like the 1940s cartoon. And the 1940s cartoon is better than even the new remake, just because they had to censor it so much. And yeah, I think it just missed the point. Like, because the cartoon Pinocchio got a lot of the points right, except Pinocchio wasn't as much of a little shit, you know. The whole point, if you ever watched or read the original book, Pinocchio, I believe I did in the 6th grade, forgot about it, but then I watched a YouTube video summarizing it for me, so I'm qualified. Basically, it's like, oh, Pinocchio came to life, you know, Geppetto made him to a human, and he was the fucking worst. He was a little shit. And then he kept doing all this shitty shit, and then he died. And it was kind of a lesson like, this is what happens when you're a fucking little shit, you son of a bitch. And then they finished the story, you know, yada, yada, yada. Anyways, though, I do want to talk about before I go into it, but anyways, though, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, it does not necessarily follow the exact story of the original writings of Pinocchio, but it's like a good take. I don't know, like, because usually when you talk about stories, you know, like when we talk about like Harry Potter, stuff like that, if you talk about the 6th Harry Potter film, the Half-Blood Prince, they strayed so far away from the source material, because that book was kind of about Voldemort was in like such big like just took control of everything, minus the Ministry of Magic, minus Hogwarts. Like, he controlled everything. People were disappearing all the fucking time. It was just sad, and you heard like kids were taken out of class. We're like, your little brother died. Hey, your parents died. You know, shit like that. Kids were taken out of class at Hogwarts for that. But they were safe at Hogwarts because, like, Voldemort was Dumbledore's bitch, you know? Stuff like that. And so it's just like a scary time to be alive. And if you read the book, it's a very sad book. And they also go over Voldemort's past and stuff like that. And the movie kind of missed the mark. Like, they got the story beats right, but they tried to make it a romance novel. And it's just not a romance novel. It has romance in it, but it's not a romance novel. It's like kids going into romance, even though they probably shouldn't, because they're kids. You know, stuff like that. And, like, that's a bad interpretation of a book. This is, like, a good interpretation where they changed a lot of the source material and actually did a really good job on it. So, here's some differences. I think we all like knowing differences. This story was based in after World War I Italy, when Mussolini came into power and stuff like that. Like, Mussolini's in the film, like, with the puppet master and shit like that. And stuff like that. And they're like, you gotta serve our country, Pinocchio. Because they had this whole plot line where, like, so if Pinocchio died, he got sent to this limbo area where this freaky lion griffin monster thing that didn't move its mouth when it talked would, Pinocchio, you have to sit with me until this hourglass runs out. Then you can come back to life, you know? And shit like that. It was really weird. It was a cool concept, but it was, like, really weird. And so Italy was like, that's the perfect soldier, and shit like that, you know? So I think it takes place around World War II, where Italy, you know, I remember when Italy was like, we're out. They were like, we're out pretty quick. It was like Germany and Japan. Like, honestly, Japan, I don't know. I'm not the biggest world history buff, but, like, Italy, that was nothing. No one had to worry about Italy. Like, they just really, let's we're thinking, like, let's take care of Italy fast. I think we need to take care of Germany next, and then Japan. Like, that was the order, and it was a smart order to do it in, to be honest with you. Japan, though, like, I played Fortnite at like 3 a.m. I know. So yeah, anyways, though, moving on, the fox and the cat were in the movie. There were big characters in the movie that, like, trick Pinocchio and shit like that and doing little fucking shit, like, stuff, you know. The movie Pinocchio was like a little shit. In this movie, he was just kind of like, you know, he's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it. It's like, were you born yesterday, kid? And it was like, yeah, he actually kind of was born yesterday. And then eventually learned to love and that shit like that. That was the whole point. I already mentioned this, but, like, Pleasure Island was not in the movie, which, like, I feel like is an important part to the Pinocchio story, but also creeps me the fuck out, and I don't want to see that shit. I mean, I need to see that shit because it's part of the movie. It's like, this is what happens when kids have unrivaled fun, but also I think it could have been explained better, but holy shit. Being turned into a donkey, that freaks me out. You're like, holy shit, my life is ruined. Like, is that shit like that? You know, stuff like that. But overall, yeah, I think that's, I just wrote, like, Pinocchio wasn't too big of a shit. I think I already talked about that. Like, he was just, like, a normal child, but, like, also, like, a child who's never, it's like, you don't give birth to a baby, you give birth to, like, a 4-year-old, and then the 4-year-old's like, why do I have to do that? I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, kid. You know, shit like that. It's like, you know, you teach your kids, like, you know, you can't do that, you know, and it's usually a gradual thing, and then, but it's like, oh, they start off like 3, 4, 5 years old, and like, oh, they don't know why you can't do that shit, and you're like, you know, it's very simple. Anyways, though, that's Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Honestly, it was a great movie, dude. Like, it was very great. It stuck with the Pinocchio story. It strayed from it, and where they strayed from it, they did a really good job on it. Like, I was surprised how well they could stray from a movie, stray from the original source material, and yet still make a good story. That's what I thought about Pinocchio. Anyways, though, you guys watch it. Let me know. Leave us a comment. Tell me what you think. Give us a like. I don't know. Go fuck yourself. Maybe too. I don't know. Hey there, you just checked out a highlight from Cancel Schweezy. Thank you very much. I'm glad that you learned something and that you are now a smarter individual. Just so you know, we have full episodes and other many highlights available now. Click here for the next best thing that you can go check out as well. And make sure you press that subscribe button and press that notification bell. That way you get updated anytime we make a new post or anytime that we make a new highlight or full episode. So thank you. Honk if you love butt drugs, and stay awesome.